Have you ever looked at someone and thought, how do they keep going? How does that person face the storm, the setbacks, the financial drought, and still get up with fire in their eyes? You think it's talent, you think it's genetics, but you'd be wrong. The truth is simple. No one is born with a strong mindset. That thing you admire, that mental strength, that grit, it was built brick by brick, choice by choice, pain by pain. And the ones who don't build it, they break. They break under pressure. They drown in procrastination. They sabotage every chance of financial growth, not because they're weak, but because they never trained their mind to become strong. Let's get brutally honest. The reason most people are stuck, emotionally, financially, spiritually, is because they wait to feel ready to act. They wait for motivation. They wait for clarity. They wait for the right time. And while they wait, life moves on. Opportunities expire. Doors close. Dreams fade. This might hurt to hear, but it's the truth. Your life is a mirror of your mindset. And if your bank account is empty, if your energy is drained, if your days feel stuck on repeat, it's not because God forgot about you. It's because you stopped showing up for your mind. Angela Duckworth, author of Grit, said, "The quality that most determines success is not IQ, it's emotional perseverance, the willingness to keep going when others would quit." But here's what she didn't say. That willingness is not a gift, it's a choice. And choices become habits, and habits shape destiny. Let that sink in. Every day, your mindset is being sculpted, either by your discipline or by your excuses. The question is, are you carving out strength or allowing weakness to rule your life? We live in a culture obsessed with quick wins. People want the six-figure income without 6 months of consistency. They want peace without prayer. They want impact without sacrifice. But here's a wake-up call. Nothing flourishes in confusion. Everything flows from clarity. And clarity requires effort, mental effort. If you don't force yourself to think differently, you'll keep living the same story. Same doubts, same patterns, same financial limits. Because every breakthrough, spiritual or financial, starts with a mental revolution. And that revolution starts with a decision. So let me ask you this. What have you been tolerating in your life because it feels safe? What opportunities have you let die because you are afraid to fail? What dream have you buried just because your mindset wasn't ready to fight for it? Now's not the time to sugarcoat. Now's the time to decide. You can keep being reactive, letting emotions control your day, letting fear make your decisions, letting lack define your worth, or you can train your mind to lead, to confront, to create, to push through, to become the person God designed you to be, not by comfort, but by commitment. And yes, that means forcing yourself, not in a harsh, self-punishing way, but in a sacred, intentional way. You trained your body to get stronger through pain, through repetition, through discipline. Why would your mind be any different? The strongest people you admire, they didn't become unshakable because it was easy. They became that way because they refused to let weakness win. You can do the same. Comment now. I train my mind to be stronger than my fears. And subscribe to this channel if you're done being led by emotions and ready to lead your life with clarity and mental strength. Because in this video, we're diving deep into what it really takes to become mentally unbreakable. Not through hype, not through think positive fluff, but through spiritual alignment, deep self-honesty, and the decision to force yourself every day to rise. This might be the answer you've been praying for.
What really weakens your mind? It's not failure. It's not obstacles. It's not even fear. It's comfort, disguised as safety. Let's expose the truth most people run from. Your comfort zone is not your safe place. It's your slow death. You say, "I'll fix it later. Now isn't the right time. That's just the way I am." But here's the raw truth. What you call a lifestyle, your mind calls self-induced limitation. You've been taught to avoid pain, discomfort, and pressure. You've been told to not stress too much and just go with the flow. But what if I told you that the flow you've been following is actually pulling you away from the life you were meant to create? See, the greatest enemy of transformation is not failure, it's stagnation. And stagnation is the byproduct of comfort. Let's be clear. Every time you avoid a challenge, your mind shrinks. Every time you postpone action, your identity weakens. Every time you choose ease over effort, you reinforce the lie that you're not capable. But every time you act, even with fear, even without motivation, you encode a new belief into your brain: I'm the kind of person who moves no matter what. That's how a strong mindset is built, not by waiting, but by confronting. David Goggins, the former Navy SEAL who turned his pain into power, put it this way: the pain of discipline is less than the regret of weakness. Let that sentence echo in your soul, because the truth is, you're already in pain. The pain of stuck finances, the pain of unrealized potential, the pain of watching time pass, knowing you were made for more. So the question isn't, how do I avoid pain? The question is, which pain am I willing to live with? The pain of discipline, or the pain of never knowing who you could have become? Here's the secret nobody told you growing up. Discomfort is divine. Discomfort is your teacher. Discomfort is your spiritual gym, the only place where strength is forged. But most people run from it. They pray for breakthrough while resisting the process. They ask God for growth, but cling to habits of avoidance. Listen carefully. You don't grow by chance. You grow by challenge. Every time you choose discipline over delay, you reclaim territory in your mind. Every time you wake up earlier, finish before the deadline, make the hard phone call, you prove to yourself that you're not driven by emotion, you're guided by vision. So let's talk practical now. If you want to build the strongest mindset of your life, you have to stop romanticizing comfort. You have to wake up spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and realize that everything you want is on the other side of resistance. Start doing this today. Create controlled discomfort every day, intentionally, relentlessly. Here are simple but powerful practices. Wake up 1 hour earlier than usual, not because you have to, but because you decided to lead your day. Finish a task ahead of deadline, not for the praise, but to rewire your identity as someone who's in control. Make a difficult phone call you've been avoiding. Face what's uncomfortable and prove to your mind that you can. Practice something that exposes you to challenge, whether it's public speaking, rejection, or vulnerability. Lean into it. These are just habits. These are micro-revolutions. Every act of discomfort becomes a brick in the foundation of an unshakable mind. And don't confuse this with toxic hustle. This is not about proving anything to the world. This is about breaking the illusion that your comfort zone is your friend, because it's not. It's the invisible ceiling that's keeping your financial life small. It's the silent killer of spiritual hunger. It's the soft voice saying, "You'll never change, so just settle." But here's what I want to remind you of. You were not created to settle. You were not designed for average. You were built with the fingerprints of God, and that means potential that can only be unlocked through fire. In Romans 5, verses 3 through 4, it says, "Suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Notice the sequence. You don't go from suffering to success. You go through perseverance, through character, through training, through inner pressure that reshapes your identity. That's what discomfort does. It strips away the lies. It forces clarity. It makes space for real growth, not the fake kind you post about, but the kind that changes how you think, speak, and earn. So the next time you're tempted to stay in bed, the next time your mind says, "Not today," the next time you feel the pull to delay, to postpone, to coast, pause and remind yourself, this moment is my training ground. This resistance is not a sign to stop. It's a signal to rise. Because here's the bottom line. If you don't choose discomfort today, you'll live in regret tomorrow. And that regret won't just be emotional. It'll be spiritual. It'll be financial. It'll be the weight of knowing you said no to the person you were meant to become. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can choose differently. You can create pressure instead of waiting for crisis. You can lead yourself instead of following fear. Discipline isn't a punishment. It's preparation. So if you want to build the strongest mindset of your life, stop waiting for motivation. Start cultivating discipline. Every uncomfortable step forward is a step out of your old identity and a step into the life you were created to lead. Let's keep going.
Let me tell you a true story. A story that proves it's not where you start, it's what you decide to do with your mind. Lucas, 27 years old, a graphic designer in Bogota, Colombia. Smart, talented, creative. But behind all that talent was an invisible enemy. Mental insecurity. Not the kind you show on the outside, the kind that whispers in your head when no one's watching. The kind that says, "You're not a leader. You're good, but not good enough. Play it safe. Don't speak up. Don't stand out." Lucas was the kind of guy who avoided attention. He would say yes to everything, not because he agreed, but because he feared confrontation. He stayed quiet in meetings, even when he had better ideas. He let others take the lead, even when he had the vision. Deep down, he wasn't lazy. He was afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of criticism, afraid of being seen and not being enough. He had convinced himself that this was just his personality, that this quiet insecurity was just who he was. But one day, something shifted. He was listening to a podcast on personal development. Just a normal day, just background noise, until a single quote pierced through the fog in his mind. It was a quote from Tracy. "Discipline is doing what you should do when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not." Something about those words cracked him open. Not because they were poetic, but because they were brutally true. Up to that point, Lucas had been waiting to feel ready, waiting for the fear to go away, waiting for confidence to magically appear. But this quote shattered that illusion. It wasn't about waiting. It wasn't about feelings. It was about force, forcing yourself to act until action became identity. That night, Lucas made a decision. Not a New Year's resolution, not a motivational burst, a decision backed by action. He called it the 30-day challenge. Here's what he committed to. Wake up at 5 a.m. every single day, no excuses. Make one video per day sharing a creative tip or insight, even though he hated being on camera. Send one new work proposal daily to potential clients or agencies. Practice speaking out loud for 10 minutes a day to train his voice and assertiveness. No one told him to do this. No one was watching. There were no likes, no comments, no applause. Just him and the decision to take his mind back. The first 5 days were hell. He felt exposed. He stumbled over his words in the videos. His pitches were ignored. His inner critic screamed, "This is pointless." But he kept going. Why? Because he had stopped negotiating with his emotions. He was done letting fear be the boss. By day 10, something shifted. He started getting messages, people thanking him for his creative insights. A comment here, a compliment there. Tiny wins, but they mattered. Because they weren't just validation, they were evidence. Evidence that his fear had lied. By day 21, a client reached out. Not just any client, a respected agency he had admired for years. They wanted to collaborate. By day 30, he closed a contract worth 3 times his previous salary. But here's the most powerful part. It wasn't just the money. It was what happened inside him. Lucas said, "Every day I forced myself was a day I proved to myself that I'm stronger than my fears." Let that sink in. This wasn't about pretending the insecurity was gone. It wasn't about becoming a superhero overnight. It was about building mental calluses. Like David Goggins says, you don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your training. And Lucas had been training. Not just his creativity, but his courage. He trained himself to act without permission, to speak even when his voice shook, to lead even when his hands trembled. That's what mental transformation looks like. Not glamorous, not perfect, but real. Today, Lucas still feels fear. He still hears that old voice now and then, but the difference? That voice doesn't decide anymore. Because he trained his mind to lead. He built inner strength through outer discomfort. And you can too. You don't need to wait until you feel confident. You don't need to wait until your finances are perfect or your plans are flawless. You just need to decide, I will no longer wait for permission to rise. Take Lucas's story as a mirror. Look at your own life. What have you been postponing because of fear?
What dream is buried under layers of "I'm not ready"? What could happen in 30 days if you stopped waiting to feel ready and forced yourself to move? This is not about becoming someone else. It's about uncovering who you've always been under the fear, the doubt, the silence. You are not your insecurity. You are not your past. You are what you decide to build. So let's be honest. Will you keep living as the version of you that fears confrontation? Or will you begin the 30-day journey towards mental toughness? You don't need to do everything. You just need to do something every single day that proves to your brain, I'm the kind of person who acts no matter how I feel. That's how confidence is born. That's how fear loses power. That's how financial doors begin to open, not because you're lucky, but because you finally became unavailable for the life that kept you small. Let Lucas be a reminder. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be committed. And when you commit, the mind follows. And when the mind aligns, the results multiply. Let's move.
Here's a truth you need to absorb deep into your bones. Mental toughness doesn't show up one day like magic. It doesn't come from reading the right book, watching the right video, or having one breakthrough moment. It's sculpted daily through intentional discomfort, through choices that stretch, challenge, and confront you. The strongest minds in the world? They weren't born strong. They just refused to live without discipline. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, put it plainly. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. In other words, you don't become resilient by wishing for it. You become resilient by ritualizing it. Because your habits, not your hopes, shape your future. Think about this. Every day, life is testing you. Will you lead or will you follow emotion? Will you choose what's right or what's easy? Will you train or will you tolerate? You can't build a strong mindset in theory. You build it in the tension, in the grind, in the ritual. Let's make this practical. Here are 3 daily rituals that will forge a stronger, clearer, and more dominant mindset from the inside out. 1. Cold start challenge. What do most people do first thing in the morning? They seek comfort, scroll, snooze, delay. But that's not leadership. That's emotional autopilot. You need to flip the script. And it starts immediately, within the first 10 minutes of your day. We call this the cold start challenge. It means doing something uncomfortable as your first action of the day. Here are 3 brutal, beautiful options. Cold shower. It shocks your system, wakes your brain, trains your nervous system to obey your will. 10 minutes of heavy reading. No dopamine, no scrolling, just something dense, difficult, stretching. 20 push-ups before anything else. Not because you love it, but because it teaches your body who's in charge. This isn't about perfection. It's about programming your mind with a signal. I lead, comfort doesn't. Why is this powerful? Because your first decision sets the tone for the rest of the day. Do you begin with resistance or surrender? The strongest people you admire, financially, spiritually, emotionally, they don't ease into the day. They conquer the first 10 minutes. Try this tomorrow. You'll feel the difference. Not because it's easy, but because it awakens your identity. 2. Mental battle journal, night ritual. Your nights shape your mornings. And if you end the day in mental chaos, you start the next day in emotional weakness. That's where the mental battle journal comes in.
This isn't some fluffy gratitude list or toxic positivity routine. It's a tool for reinforcing self-trust. Here's how it works. Before bed, answer these 3 questions in a journal, no more than 5 minutes. 1. What moment today made me want to quit, run, or avoid? 2. What did I do anyway, despite the fear or resistance? 3. How did I feel after acting instead of hiding? These questions do something powerful. They train your mind to recognize its own growth. They reinforce self-efficacy, the belief that you can depend on yourself under pressure. That belief is a superpower, because once your mind learns that you always show up, it stops defaulting to fear. Most people don't lack motivation. They lack memory. They forget what they've overcome. They forget what they're capable of. This ritual keeps the evidence in front of you. It tells your brain every night, we are strong, we fight, we finish. It creates momentum that sleep cannot erase. 3. Daily courage mission. Every single day, your mind gives you a way out. An excuse, a delay, a next time. You must respond with a ritual of resistance, a mini mission of courage every single day. This is a micro-action that hits directly at your avoidance reflex. Here are some real-world examples. Speak to someone you usually avoid, a mentor, a boss, a potential partner. Send a proposal you've been sitting on, even if your inner voice says it's not perfect yet. Say no where you'd normally say yes. Respect your time. Protect your standards. Reclaim your boundaries. This mission isn't about volume. It's about deliberate defiance. You are teaching your mind, I obey vision, not emotion. The more you follow through on your own orders, the more your subconscious begins to respect you as a leader. And that's what mental toughness really is. Not being fearless, but acting while afraid. Not avoiding resistance, but making resistance your gym. When you delay these missions, your fears grow. When you face them, your identity expands. The world doesn't need more knowledge. It needs more courage. And that courage is built, not born. Here's the bottom line. You are not weak. You're just undertrained. And training doesn't start with motivation. It starts with structure. The strongest minds aren't made in silence. They're forged in ritual, in consistent, uncomfortable, sacred repetition. You lead your mornings with discomfort. You end your nights with proof. You face your fears, one courageous act at a time. And that's how you become the person who no longer tolerates weakness, not just externally, but internally. The strongest people aren't lucky. They're intentional. They train like they want to live, and they live like they've already won the war inside. So what about you? Will you keep waiting to feel ready? Or will you rise with ritual? Start tomorrow. You don't need a new life. You need new rituals. Let's go.
You don't need a life with less pressure. You need a mindset that rises under pressure. The strongest mind isn't the one that feels no fear. It's the one that sees the fear and moves anyway. Let's kill the illusion right now. You're not stuck because you lack talent. You're not stuck because you lack opportunity. You're stuck because you've been trained to avoid pain instead of embrace growth. But here's what most people never realize. Every pressure in your life has the potential to either break you or build you. That frustration you're feeling, that silence from God, that door that didn't open,
That's the heat that can turn coal into diamond if you stay in the fire long enough. Tracy said it with surgical clarity. Everything you want is on the other side of discomfort. Not some things, everything. Discipline, found through discomfort. Clarity, found through discomfort. Financial breakthrough, found through discomfort. Healing, courage, purpose, all born in the places you keep avoiding. The problem isn't the pressure. The problem is how you've been interpreting it. You've been praying for peace, but peace doesn't come from less pressure. It comes from becoming the person who's no longer threatened by pressure. That's what spiritual maturity looks like. It's when you say, I'm done waiting for the storm to stop. I'll train myself to walk through it. Romans 5:3-4 says, tribulation produces perseverance. Perseverance, character. Character, hope. But here's the part we forget. Hope comes after the pressure. Hope is earned through endurance, and endurance is built through deliberate resistance. That means every hard thing you've gone through, every loss, every delay, every rejection, was not just allowed, it was designed to shape you, to sharpen you, to strip away the soft parts of your identity so that only the unshakable remains. You don't grow from information, you grow from transformation, and transformation only happens when you step into discomfort on purpose. This isn't about being fearless, this is about being faithful to the process. Because here's the truth. You will face pressure. You will feel fear. You will hear voices inside telling you to shrink, to stop, to settle. But the mind that's trained daily, the mind that's sculpted through discipline, the mind that's forged in the fire of structure, purpose, and spiritual alignment, that mind will not collapse. That mind leads. That mind creates. That mind builds wealth, purpose, peace. And you have access to that mind, not because you're perfect, but because you're willing. Willing to choose discipline over delay. Willing to do what's uncomfortable before it becomes natural. Willing to walk through fear with faith. You want to take control of your life? Then stop asking for permission to grow. Stop negotiating with your past. Stop praying for a lighter load and start praying for a stronger back. Because here's what pressure does. It reveals your fractures, it tests your truth, and it gives you the chance every day to either reinforce the weakness or replace it with strength. No more excuses, no more waiting, no more begging for clarity while ignoring the disciplines that produce it. The future doesn't belong to those who feel ready. It belongs to those who train to be ready, through pressure, through fire, through daily choice. Comment right now, I lead my mind, I face pressure, I grow through challenge. And subscribe to this channel if you're ready to trade excuses for direction, fear for movement, doubt for disciplined strength. This is not motivation. This is mental renovation. This is your call to build the strongest version of yourself from the inside out. Because the strongest mind isn't found, it's built. And the construction starts today. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder. The mind you admire is forged, and the pressure you're facing might just be the furnace God is using to turn you into something unbreakable. Let's rise.